Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be going through my Norwich City team of the decade. Now, over the last 10 years we've been very lucky with the team that we've had. We've seen back-to-back promotions from League One to the Premier League, staying up for two years in a row, getting relegated in the third season, then bouncing back in the playoffs, and then getting relegated again obviously, but after that we then spent 3 years down in the Championship rebuilding, finishing 8th, 14th, and then we won the league title. So we've seen some amazing goals from Alex Tettey and James Maddison, and volleys from Johnny Houlihan. We've seen Wes Houlihan just being Wes Houlihan and sitting defenders down on their butts. We've seen just about everything we could have seen. We had Bradley Johnson winding Joey Barton up and getting him sent off, and then being on darts later that night being like, Barton, your breath stinks. We've had a very good 10 years. So I've decided for one of my last videos of 2019 I'm going to be going through my Norwich team of the decade, and I've looked through and I've looked at the stats of several players. Now I've had to pick a formation, which has been the most difficult part, because there's so many players that I couldn't get in because of the formation. If I would have, so for example, if I would have had 4-4-2, I would have had two strikers. If I would have had 4-2-3-1, then I could get two defensive midfielders in. It's been difficult to do, but I've had to settle on a formation. I've settled on the 4-2-3-1 formation. So I'm going to go through, and there's a bunch of players who I haven't picked for the team, but I think deserve a mention anyway. So for goalkeeper, we're going to start off at the back. We're going to start off with the goalkeeper. There's 4 goalkeepers I would say have been fantastic for us this decade. First one, Fraser Forster. 38 appearances for us in a side which ended up winning League One. He came in, we got him in on an emergency loan after, I think it was Ben Anik picked up an injury, which was unfortunate. I can't remember who it was who actually, but one of our defenders pushed one of the strikers into Ben Anik. He then got injured for the rest of the season, so had to go. At that point, our only other goalkeeper was Declan Rudd, and yeah, so Fraser Forster came in and he really did step up. I remember him making a fantastic save when it looked like he had been completely beaten against Tranmere. So Fraser Forster was up there, but then we also had Angus Gunn on loan as well. He made 46 appearances. Between him and Harrison Reed and James Maddison, I think they were our 3 best players that season. If I remember right, they were the top 3 for player of the season. 2 of which were on loan. The other one we ended up selling that summer, getting 25 million for it. Now the other one, if this decade had gone on maybe another season longer, I maybe would have put him in the side. Tim Krul, 64 appearances so far for Norwich. He's been outstanding. I mean, last season he perhaps struggled a little bit, but this season he's really picked up. He's saved us so many points and from conceding so many times. Just trying to think. To be honest, in a lot of the games where he has made saves, it's mostly been just to keep the score down. Otherwise, we would have really struggled. And that's through no fault of our defence, really. We've had obviously our defence has been injured, as everybody knows about, for a lot of them games where we have had to rely on Tim Krul. I remember against Manchester United, point blank save from, I can't remember if it was Rashford or Martial, one of them anyway. Point blank save. It was incredible. But the goalkeeper I've had to go with, and I've looked at his stats his appearances. You can't not put him in your team of the decade. John Ruddy. He made 235 appearances for us, starting in 2010, and I can't remember when it was we sold him. I think it was like 2017, whenever it was that that Angus Gunn came in. Anyway, that summer, we sold John Ruddy, or we released him, and he's gone on to be very good for Wolves. He got them promotion before unfortunately being replaced by an incredible goalkeeper in Rui Patricio, but he was fantastic for us. He, like Tim Krul in the Championship, he kind of struggled a little bit, but then he eventually when we got into the Premier League, he got going, and he rightfully staked his claim as our number one. And he was a big part of the reason why we actually stayed up for those 2 seasons, pulling off some incredible saves. Third season, I wouldn't say he was at fault that much, and then obviously he then was a big part of the side, which then won promotion via the playoffs as well, beating Ipswich along the way. And that's another thing I forgot to mention at the beginning. We've seen a decade of dominance over Ipswich, so very happy with that. At right back, there can only really be one player. You can't pick anybody other than Russell Martin. Yes, Max Aarons has been fantastic for us since he's come in, but 278 appearances, 16 goals. Admittedly, some of them were at centre-back, but Russell Martin's best days were as Norwich's number 2. He came in initially on loan, I believe, from Peterborough, and then, no, was it Peterborough, Wickham? One of them, anyway. He had obviously worked with the manager at that time, who I will not be mentioning. And he'd originally worked with him at Wickham, and so he knew what would be expected. He knew exactly what would be the minimum. And he came in. He was a big part of the side that won. I think he was a part of our League One winning season. And then, he was part of our League One winning season, and then promotion to the Championship. He was a big part of that as well. Best right back I've seen. Admittedly, Max Aarons is on his way to at least catching up with him. But Russell Martin, for me, in my entire time of supporting Norwich, which is since 2001, I don't think I've known a better right back than Russell Martin. He's very good going forwards, and he was always capable of getting back as well. He was able to stop a cross, which is very good, very helpful. And when he moved to centre back, he wasn't as good, but he deserves that number 2, that spot there as the right back and the Norwich City team of the decade. Centre back. Now I've got 3 listed, so one of them is going to have to miss out, and unfortunately that one is going to have to be Christoph Zimmermann. To date, he has made 88 appearances, scoring 3 times for Norwich. I do think if he was given a little bit more time, he would probably have made my team of the decade. But unfortunately, I just don't think he's quite had long enough compared to the other 2 who were very good for us for an extended period of time. Or one is currently, but not playing for us right now. But 88 appearances for Christoph Zimmermann, a real captain. He is a big part of the reason why we got promoted last season, and it's showing by how much we missed him. It's showing how much we needed him, really, or the impact he has. And I've said this in other videos. I won't go over it too much, but we needed Christoph Zimmermann. So the 2 centre backs. I'm going to start with Tim Closer. So he's made my team of the decade. 110 appearances, 10 goals. I looked in the centre backs. There wasn't really anybody who made massive number of appearances. There was 2 players. The 2 players that I picked are really I think they're the top 2 in terms of appearance making. They're certainly the best 2 in terms of quality. You could make an argument for Ryan Bennett, maybe. You could make an argument for Zach Whitbread, but I don't think they've done enough over a prolonged period of time as opposed to these 2. So Tim Closer is the first one. 110 appearances, 10 goals is very good. It's a good record. One of them, bear in mind, was one of my moments of the decade. One of my favourite moments, just because of how funny it was anyway, where Grant Hanley crossed it in and Tim Closer headed the ball in. I think that's the way it was. I know anyway it was Grant Hanley and Tim Closer. So that was part of the reason, looking at moments like that where he's changed games, he's got us big points. But then the other centre-back is Sebastian Bassong. You cannot underestimate just how good Sebastian Bassong was for us. Now, he was so good in the first season. In the second season, they gave him the captain's armband. We signed him from Tottenham for, I don't even know how much it was actually. I'm not sure if it was a free, but we signed him anyway. We signed Sebastian Bassong from Tottenham. and he ended up going on to make 105 appearances, scoring 4 goals. That first season, he was incredible. I remember he was my favourite player at that point. I ended up getting him on the back of my shirt. He then became captain, and then it did go a bit downhill from there. He did make a few mistakes, but I think that was more to do with the pressure of being captain than anything. I do think he is a very good player. He definitely makes my team of the decade. So, left back, I've got 3 players. So, first one, Adam Drury. Between 2010 and 2012, he made 32 appearances, scoring 1 goal. He obviously made a lot of appearances before that. He's a club legend, so that's why I've included him. He hasn't done enough to be in my team of the decade, but he did start the decade with Norwich. He then went on to move to Leeds. So, yeah, I'm okay. So, if he had longer, if the decade started a bit sooner, he probably would have been a bit closer to making my team of the decade, but he was at the club for 32 appearances in this decade. These are all league appearances, by the way. League appearances and league goals. Jamal Lewis is on his way to becoming up there. He's on his way to being up there. When you look at the players who he's alongside, he's on his way, but obviously he's still young. He's only just really got going. He's made 78 appearances, hasn't scored any goals in the league. He did score that header against Chelsea, though, that was a very good moment. So my left back for the team of the decade is got to be Martin Olsen. 119 appearances, 3 goals. Admittedly, for defenders, goals don't really make much of a difference, but Martin Olsen was very good going forwards, very good defensively, a lot like Russell Martin. He joined us in the Premier League. Obviously, we then did get relegated, and then I think he was a big part of the team that won the playoffs as well. So, yeah, very good. He did... He obviously has left us since, but he was at that time he was a very good player for us, very important player. Okay, so I've picked 2 CDMs, 2 players miss that I've got listed. There's four CDMs that I've got listed. 2 miss out, 2 get in. So first player that misses out, I'm gonna say Johnny Housen. Now this is where I had the real problem, because I was trying to fit 4 midfielders into 2 spots, and just midfield in general. We all decade comparatively defensive areas was no issue. I had no issue picking John Ruddy, no issue picking Russell Martin. There was only one centre back who missed out and 2 left backs who missed out. Now, for CDM, there's two players miss out. Right mid, 2 players miss out. Left mid, 3 players miss out. Central attacking midfield, 2 players miss out. And up front, there's 2 players miss out. So this is where we have the big issue here. So first player who misses out, Johnny Housen. Now this one was tough. 176 appearances, 22 goals for Johnny Housen. What can you say, really? Box to box player. He loved to get to the edge of the attacking box. He also loved to put in a tackle. He did sometimes miss his tackles, but for the most part, he was very good. He was very good. Just a well-rounded player. One of the players who we signed from Leeds. 22 goals. My favourite of which was the Nottingham Forest strike. On the volley, the ball is crossed in, headed away. Ball gets crossed in, headed away, and then he unleashes an incredible volley right into the top corner. And yeah, he could so easily have made my team of the decade, but I couldn't possibly not put in the 2 players who I've put in. Mario Vrancic, 79 appearances, 12 goals. If he had longer in the decade, I think he would have made it. He scored some incredible goals, a lot like Johnny Housen. His strike against Blackburn was incredible. Put us on our way to winning the winning promotion, and then obviously winning the title. And then obviously he did score the goal that won us the title as well. The free kick against Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, his free kick 2 days ago. Not free kick. The goal 2 days ago against Tottenham, incredible. I mean, if he had more time, if he played for us for a bit longer in the decade, 100% he gets in the team. But comparatively, compared to the two players who got in, he just hasn't had enough time. He's probably got the best goals to game ratio with 79 appearances, 12 goals. So the two CDMs who I have picked, first one is Bradley Johnson, one of the Leeds contingency. 142 appearances, 12 goals. Very good record. No, 12 goals. 22 goals in 142 appearances. Very good record there. Obviously, he's made less appearances than Johnny Howson, but for me, he gets in just purely because when I said about Johnny Howson being good at tackling, Bradley Johnson loved a tackle. He was your very typical holding midfielder, a lot like what Tettey is now. He's very good at reading the game. And again, he did get a few wrong in the Premier League. He did, he did get sent off a couple of times, I think. But for the most part, in most games, you could rely on Bradley Johnson. And the goals he scored as well, I remember his thumping effort against Ipswich. Smashed it into the top corner. And that was in the playoffs as well. So you can't underestimate the impact of our defensive midfielders. We're very gifted with our defensive midfielders this decade. We've had some incredible players. The other player I'm going to pick is at CDM is Alex Tettey. Now, he joined us in 2012, so he is still playing for us 8 years later, or what will be 8 years later. Provided that we don't sell him in the summer, he will have been here for exactly 8 years. And he just seems to get better. Like last season was probably the worst season he's had. He was slow. I think it was the fact that it was Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, just about most weeks, and he didn't look like he had the legs to go. But I was very concerned when I saw the team sheet for the Tottenham game, having seen how last season they would have to give him a week rest, and he couldn't go Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. I was like, well, how do they expect him to go, what was it, Thursday, Saturday? It just doesn't make any sense. But he did it. He was very good. He's very good at reading play, so he knows what's going to happen like a couple of seconds before it even happens. So he doesn't even really need to slide when he's defending. He knows exactly what he's doing. He does sometimes make the odd mistake. I mean, again, we're Norwich. We're not going to have a perfect player. We're not going to have a player who's incredible at tackling and gets it right every single time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing for Norwich. They'd be playing for a Chelsea or a Man City or something. So we're not going to have anybody who gets it right every time. But Alex Tettey has been just incredible for us. I remember his effort against Sunderland it is my favourite goal of this decade. I was there for that one, and as much as Mario Vrancic probably meant more, the Alex Tettey goal in terms of quality was just insane. And corner came in, headed away, and then he's probably about 30 yards out. First time, just hits it. Alex Tettey doesn't do normal goals. He scored that toe poke against Manchester United, I think it was. He scored all sorts of insane goals, but you give him a tap in from 2 yards out, he's probably going to miss it. But, obviously 7 goals is not much, but he's got so close to scoring this season again as well. He's hit the post like 3 or 4 times. He's done just about everything that you could want from him. And now it gets to the point where I jokingly shout shoot at a game. Obviously, I haven't sat in the upper Barclay, so he's not going to be able to hear me. But whenever Alex Tettey gets the ball about 30 yards out, I'm like, shoot! If he had the ball from 2 yards out, I'd be like, pass it! But, yeah, so Alex Tettey has to go in for me. He can't not go in. And obviously, he is 33, so he's not going to make my team of next decade. But Alex Tettey will always be a club legend at Norwich, as far as I'm concerned. He's been there for, I think, he's been through 2 promotions with Norwich, 1 winning the title, 1 winning the playoffs. So yeah. So right mid. I'll switch it around. So I'm going to go with the current player. I'm going to pick Emi Buendia is one of the players who doesn't make my team of the decade, but he's the one I'm going to mention first. So Emi Buendia has been incredible, and he's starting to find himself again. He went through a period where he was trying too hard and he wasn't necessarily getting the ball forward. I remember against Watford, he had that mistake in the first 90 seconds where he just tried too much. And sometimes when you try too much, you get it wrong, and eventually you do need to be dropped. And Emi Buendia did get dropped, and I think he probably must have been working on it in training. He must have been told to go back to the basics a bit more. He must have been told, don't take any stupid risks, because he's come back into the side and he's just created chance after chance after chance, and he's been incredible for us. He's taken on every player possible. Now, for me, I wouldn't really consider Emi Buendia more of a right mid, because he doesn't tend to stay out wide. He tends to find the lines in between the left back and the centre back. So he's not a right mid per se. If you was to ask him to take the ball out wide, he doesn't really do it that much. He doesn't. He's not the kind of player to go out wide and take players on. He comes inside, and that opens up space for the right back, in this case Max Aarons. And yeah, so 8 goals, all of which were last season during our promotion-winning campaign. I can't wait to see Emi Buendia get on the score sheet again. He will score before the season's out. He has had 15 assists this calendar year, which is more than anybody this decade. So, in fact, it's more than anybody for a long time, I think. 15 assists in a calendar year. That's a lot, and that's partly because of Teemu Pukki being so prolific. And, you look at his assist against Leicester, picks the ball up on halfway pretty much, turns straight away. He's looking for Teemu Pukki. Teemu Pukki, as soon as Emi Buendia's got the ball, just runs, makes that run, same run every time, the ball perfectly through. And then Teemu Pukki does what Teemu Pukki does. And that's Emi Buendia has been fantastic at that. But he hasn't quite been here enough compared to the player who did get in. So the next one is Elliot Bennett, 67 appearances, 2 goals. Obviously, he was here towards the start of the decade. Very good. He was an incredible player. He was always reliable. He wasn't necessarily going to go and get a 10 out of 10, but you could always guarantee that you were going to get a 7 or a 6 or a 7 out of 10. And that for me was always important. One of his goals was against Tottenham. I think he scored the winning goal away at Tottenham from the edge of the box. And if he can do that against Tottenham, I don't see why he didn't do it more often. But very good player, very quick, always able to beat the opponent. And yeah, so he's unlucky not to get in as well. But the player who does get in, and I don't think you could maybe give it to either of them two, but the player for me who it had to be was Robert Snodgrass. He was always reliable. I suppose he did actually have a season where he kind of struggled, but 67 appearances, 12 goals, so same number of appearances as Elliot Bennett, 10 more goals, and that's purely because he was a set piece taker. He could deliver a ball, he could put the ball, he could just score from free kicks. I think he hit the bar with a couple of free kicks. He was always a very good player for us. There's the last of the Leeds players. Unfortunately, it didn't work out with Luciano Becchio, but Robert Snodgrass, Bradley Johnson, and Johnny Howson, it did work out with. And yeah, so 67 appearances for Robert Snodgrass. Unfortunately, we did sell him. I would have liked to see us keep him, but if I remember right, he won Player of the Season in the season where we got relegated, and then I think it was West Ham came in for him. And as much as I would have liked for him to stay, you can't really fault him for wanting Premier League football. Yeah. And then I think, was that the season where we got, I think that was the season where we got, won the playoffs. So I think he came down and then we won, he left us and then we won the playoffs. So yeah. I do wonder what would have happened if he would have maybe had, I don't know, Teemu Pukki or Grant Holt playing in up front rather than Ricky Van Wolfswinkel that season. But we'll never know. So left mid, I'm going to start with Onel Hernandez, 62 appearances, 9 goals. He came off the bench and scored twice on Boxing Day last year, and pulled us back, twice in injury time, pulled us back from 3-1 down to 3-3 against Nottingham Forest. One of my favourite games from last season, although I do have many games which I would class as my favourites. Last season was incredible, so you can't really not put Onel Hernandez in. He was signed in the January. I can't remember if it was the January before or the January before that. He was brought in for the second half of the season, and we was unsure what to think of him, because obviously he was unknown. He was one of our players brought in from the lower divisions in Germany. Wasn't actually German though. He's Cuban. He's the first ever Cuban player to play in the Premier League and the first ever Cuban player to score in the Premier League. So, well happy with that. I'm happy to see Onel Hernandez continue in the side. I do think he's very good. He provides a lot of width that we definitely need. A lot of pace even that we need in our midfield. We're not really gifted with pace. We have Todd Cantwell who can not so much skill, who can do the basics and get past somebody. We have Emi Buendia who can use skill to get past somebody, and then we have Onel Hernandez who has pace. And then you have Kenny McLean who's I don't really know what his style is, to be honest, but he's effective. He's very good in the air. He's somebody who, if you play the ball forward, he'll get the knockdown, hopefully, and get through to Teemu Pukki. But Onel Hernandez is the one who provides the pace. He's the one who provides the width. And he was very unlucky a couple of times against Tottenham the other day. But last season he was incredible for us when he did play. He scored nine goals altogether for us, and in 62 appearances. Another one who I actually thought made more appearances for us, but apparently didn't. Andrew Salmon scored against Ipswich. He made 52 appearances, scoring 7 goals. Eventually left us to join Bournemouth. I think we signed him from Wolves, and I thought he was going to be a much better player, but eventually he did leave us for Bournemouth, and then they moved him into the centre. And he's a very good player for Bournemouth. He just hasn't done enough to make our team of the decade for me. Another one, Anthony Pilkington, 75 appearances, 14 goals. It's a lot of goals. I actually didn't realise how many goals he scored for us, but he just didn't quite have the number of appearances. He's just an incredible player for us. Scored that goal against Manchester United. I can't remember who it was who crossed it in, but he scored his header and ended up getting 14 goals. I'm not sure how many assists he got, but very good for us down the left-hand side in that season. But the player who makes my team of the decade, Nathan Redmond, 112 appearances, 11 goals, scored in the playoff final. I think he also assisted Cameron Jerome in that one. He scored against Ipswich in the playoff semi-final. He was just all-round very good. There was times where you maybe get a bit frustrated, but bear in mind we did sign him at 19 or 20. So he joined us from Birmingham. Unfortunately, we did get relegated with him in the team. And then in fact, I think we got relegated twice with him in the team. Because I think he joined us in the Premier League. We got relegated. We won the playoffs. And then we got relegated again. But 11 goals in 112 appearances. That's not bad. That's a goal every 10 games, but I think he got a lot of assists as well. So, yeah, Nathan Redmond makes my team of the decade. Very good player for us. Now, central attacking midfield, this is where I've had the big issue. This is where I had, in fact, a massive issue with this. So, we'll start with Todd Cantwell. 44 appearances, 6 goals. He's been incredible for us in the Premier League. I think 5 of his 6 goals for us were in the Premier League. I think last season he only scored 1. He did go out on loan, and then he's since come back. He's come back to Norwich since, and he's been incredible for us. I mean, last season he perhaps struggled a little bit in the sense that he didn't really score enough or assist enough. People were on his back a bit, but this season he's worked on it. If he was given more time, if the Todd Cantwell from this season was given more time this decade, he would have made it a lot more difficult and made me have to choose him. This is the one player who one of two players who I'm really frustrated I couldn't get in. Next up is James Maddison. I'm really, really frustrated I couldn't get him into this team, because he was incredible for us. 47 appearances, 15 goals. That is something you cannot overlook. He made that position his own, really, and he ended up getting moved to Leicester. He is one of the players who, even though he left us, you can't not want the best for. He single-handedly kept us up that season. If James Maddison wasn't there, our game plan that season was literally just give the ball to James Maddison, let him do it. He scored free kicks, he scored from open play, he put incredible corners in, and it's no surprise that he's actually gone on to become the player he is today at Leicester with the England first team. It just doesn't surprise me at all. We saw straight away the quality that he had. He came in under Alex Neil when I think he was out on loan at Coventry, and then we recalled him in January, and then Alex Neil barely played him. He was kind of just sat on the bench. He made a couple of appearances off the bench, and then he went on under, who was it after Alex Neil? It was Neil Adams, was it? And he then went on to play a few times. No, I think it was Alan Irvine played him, and he made quite a few, and he looked really good. And then the next season under... it was under Daniel Farke. Next season was under Daniel Farke, and he went on to score quite a few goals and looked an incredible player. And it's no surprise that he's now gone on to make a debut for England and score as many goals and get as many assists as he has for Leicester. For me, he's one of the best players in the Premier League right now. So the player I have picked is Wes Houlihan. So unfortunately, I had to leave James Maddison out, but I have no issues at all with putting Wes Houlihan in. 352 appearances, 54 goals in the time since. Although I can't remember if that actually includes since 2008. I think that does include since 2008. So that's in total in his time at Norwich. So that's quite the record. Not very many players can say that they made 352 appearances. He went on to get his testimonial, which I was very happy about. And yeah, so he even scored on his last game for Norwich. Unfortunately, he did go on to play for West Brom. He's now playing all the way down in Australia. I can't remember who it's with now. I think is it Melbourne Victory? It's an Australian team anyway. But yeah, 352 appearances, 54 goals. The goal against Rotherham was one of the more memorable ones. Obviously, he scored against Ipswich in the playoffs as well. But his goal against Rotherham, which was he left both the defender and the goalkeeper down on the ground, and then just had an open goal to tap it in, just simply by being Wes. He did miss a couple of penalties as well, which were quite frustrating. I remember his one against Preston where he tried to chip the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper went the other way and then had the time to get up and push it away or whatever it was. I think he might have even caught it. I don't know, but that was quite frustrating. But on the whole, Wes Houlihan is and will forever be a club legend. And when he retires, I hope to see him move back to Norwich, because I think he still has a house here. I'm not 100% sure on that. But yeah, no, he's very good. And we do miss him. As much as obviously we've got our players now, it's really weird not having Wes Houlihan still. He played for us for 10 years, so it's still something that you have to adjust to. But it was really weird when we played West Brom and we thought we could have had to play Wes Houlihan. So up front, this is the last position, and I know that this has been an incredibly long video, and I'm very sorry, but last position up front, we can only pick one, but I wish I could pick two. So Cameron Jerome, 130 appearances, 38 goals. Not the best record, but he provided a lot more than goals for the club. He provided quite a few assists as well, and he was just overall a hard-working player. You could always guarantee 100%. Even if he wasn't necessarily having the best of games, you knew he was always going to give 100%. So, yeah, so he's my third best striker this decade. Now, I wish he had played for the club for longer, because if he had, he would 110% have been in the team. I would have found a way to put him in, but Teemu Pukki, 63 appearances, 38 goals. That's an incredible record. That's more than a goal every other game, and 9 of them have come in the Premier League. So 29, this is obviously league goals. 29 league goals last season, 9 this season. I mean, what can you say about a record like that? That's incredible. His runs that he makes, you just can't, as a defender, you just can't mark him. You have to just hope he's given offside. You have to hope that they've not timed it right. Because when you've got somebody like Teemu Pukki and they're running directly at you, waiting for the ball to come through, the only thing, you have 2 options. You can either follow him and hope that you can get there first, or you can sit and wait and hope that they don't find a way over you or around you, and it just makes it really difficult. Even Leicester couldn't hold him, Tottenham couldn't hold him. I mean, that offside from against him. Man City couldn't hold him. Who else couldn't? Newcastle, he scored a hat-trick against. He scored for fun in that game, although admittedly he did miss a couple of chances. But the player who I have to pick in my team of the season, he joined us in 2010, so every single appearance was this decade. 154 appearances, 68 goals. Grant Holt. You can't look at this decade and not put Grant Holt in there. He has to be in there. It's incredible looking back. Admittedly, he wouldn't work in a 4-2-3-1 formation. You have to put him in with somebody next to him. When he had somebody like Simeon Jackson or even Steve Morrison next to him, he was very good. He could always find that flick on and just find that little bit of extra space. Just imagine if we had Grant Holt and Teemu Pukki in the team together. I don't know if they would work, but if we could have had Grant Holt in his prime and Teemu Pukki, they would have loved it. If we could find a way, say we played like a 4-4-2 diamond, and we had Grant Holt at his best, Teemu Pukki, you had Wes Houlihan in behind, Emi Buendia on the right, that would just be insane. So yeah, there's my team of the season. Obviously, he scored a team of the season, team of the decade. Obviously, Grant Holt scored a hat-trick against Ipswich, that was probably to this day still one of my favourite matches. My first ever East Anglian derby, that one. So thank you, Grant Holt, for giving me a great memory of that one. I'd never been to I'd been to one local derby before, but it was Notts County versus Mansfield. It wasn't up with the intensity of Norwich and Ipswich, and yeah. So luckily, I've been able to see quite the decade. I mean, I could have spent another 30 years waiting for a decade like this. There are probably people out there who still think that who've been, going since like the 60s, 70s, who still haven't seen a decade like it. The team that we have now is just insane. Individually, you've got players who I would like to see in the current team, but in terms of the team we have now, we're very lucky with the team that we have. But this decade, we've seen some incredible moments, and honestly, I can't wait for another decade of hopefully not having to play Ipswich, because they're all the way down in League One. So hopefully we can enjoy ourselves, and hopefully we can have a decade in the Premier League. Maybe we might even win an FA Cup or something. Get a good cup run going. And then also manager of the season, Daniel Farke. Obviously, it couldn't not be. The way he's got the players playing is some of the best football. I never thought I'd see a Norwich team playing football like it. You look at Emi Buendia, he's just beating players for fun. Alex Tettey is just putting tackles in left, right and centre. You've got Christoph Zimmermann being a great leader. Admittedly, he has given away 2 penalties, but he's still up there as a very good player. He's still learning the league as well, and bear in mind he has just come back from a long-term injury. But yeah, so my team of the decade, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with my choice for team of the decade. Let me know yours, if there's any changes that you would make. And yeah, so hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Hopefully you agree with mine. But if not, that's fine. Let me know what you think, who you would put in. And yeah, leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and in the meantime, until the next video, I will see you then.